Well, first I'm going to correct you, Maria. I'm actually from Derry.
Oh dear God, sorry.
Derry to Kerry. We sort of align ourselves with Kerry. So, uh,
I love that, and I won't forget that now.
except
So,
except whenever the two are playing in the GAA finals for the
of
side,
course,
then
yeah,
we're very partial to Derry.
that's it. Exactly. Sure, that's the way it has to be. Anyway, looking forward to the surprise that Madeline is going to give us there now. So,
Well, I thought I'd tell you one that actually is to do with this area. There's a very big inlet to the North Sea, and it's called Loch Foyle, which is known as the Borrowed Lake. So this is a story which starts off way, way, way beyond the curtain of time in the west of Ireland, in a very rocky, rocky area. But in the midst of this rocky area, there was a beautiful, beautiful silver lake. Now, there was a king and a queen lived there, and one thing really marred their happiness. They didn't have a child, and they waited for 7 long years. No child came. And eventually they sent for the druid and they asked his advice. And he said, "Leave it with me, and I will come back to you." And he did. He came back in 3 days and he said, "You can have two children, two girls, but you must have the two. You cannot just accept one. Now, when one of them is 7 years old, they will develop a black heart, and the other will be as radiant as the sun, but you will not know which." So they were just so delighted. The queen, oh, she could have a baby, she could have a baby. And the king saw just how happy she was. And of course, they went along with it. And within that year, they had their first baby. And they called her Docus, the bright heart. And she was a beautiful baby, black hair, beautiful, pale, pale skin like eggshell. And then in another year, they had another baby, a radiant baby, as blonde and blue eyed as her sister was not. And they loved both children. And the mother used to take them up to her beautiful silver lake and she would sing lullabies to them. And they were a very, very happy family. But then, when 7 years passed, the servants began to notice that the older child, Creedocus, was not uh, kind to her sister. Very, very crafty. Her parents didn't know, but the servants noticed. And behind her back, they began to call her Creedu, the Black Heart. And then, when they were a little bit older, the father died and the mother died. But the father had made arrangements before because he had recognized that, yes, there was something strange and that his older daughter was, in fact, the daughter with the black heart. And he divided his kingdom and he left the northern part, which was much larger, to the older daughter. And she was absolutely delighted because she had more than her sister. And she was always jealous of her sister. And her sister was left with just a small part in the west of Ireland, but it had the Silver Lake. So the older daughter went to the north, but she didn't look after her land and she didn't look after her subject, and it dried up and everything became barren and not fertile. And she wondered, what could she do? "I know," she said. "I will go to my sister and I will take her lake." But she was very, very crafty. And she went to her sister, and her sister was so delighted to see her because she had such a warm, open heart, and she saw no wrong in her sister. And of course, Creedu, she flattered her, told her how wonderful she was. And then after a few days, her sister believed her. And, she would have given her anything that she asked for. And Creedu said, "I would like to borrow your lake." And Avian said, but this is where I go. This is where I hear my mother singing her lullabies. This is the only sparkling silver lake that I have, and I cannot give it to you. And she said, I will simply borrow it until Jaloon, which is Monday. And Avian thought, yeah, you may borrow it, but please bring it back before sundown on Jaloon. So the older sister rolled up the lake and she carried it to the north. And she laid it down between the two mountains. And it looked beautiful in the northern light. And the young sister waited on Monday, Jaloon, and she waited. And the sun began to set on the horizon. And she walked up to where her lake had been, and there was nothing there but crisscross rocks. And she cried to her mother, Mother, please, please send my sister back with my lake. And the sister tapped her on the shoulder and she said, I am here, dear sister. And she said, oh, you've brought my lake. And Credo said, I've brought your lake. No, no, I have the lake now. And the young sister said, but you said that you would borrow it. You would only borrow it until Jaloon. And the older sister said, no, I said I would borrow it until Jaloon, Judgment Day. And she disappeared. And the young girl broke her heart. And it is said that her spirit flew to the north to be with her silver lake. But when she arrived there, she did not find Credo. She had gone. And Avian heard the lullabies from her mother's voice over the borrowed lake, which became known as Loch Foyle, on which our city of Derry is built. And it is said the reason people in Derry can sing so well is because of the borrowed lake. Sinead and Scale.
Tá scéal seo go húntaach. Mwah. Oh my goodness, that was gorgeous. That painted pictures on the internal cinema in my mind. I loved it. And I've never heard that one before, Madeline, you know. So
In my book.
it's in your book, The Derry Folk Tales, and there was a message to say that Colin had bought that book today. So can you hold the book up again? These are the books of Irish stories, and there's one for every county in Ireland. This is the Derry one, and it was authored by our own Madeline McCully, and it was the pictures in it were done by Catherine Souter Caddick, who's fabulous as well, you know.
I was an art teacher, so I did all the other illustrations.
Did you? Wow, that's amazing, you know. So so if you ever want to buy any of those Irish books with the Irish folk tales, it's from History Press. You can get them and they're sold in bookstores now. I only found that out when Colin put that in the message, so I'm delighted to hear that. So Madeline, thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting as always. You know, these are my story family and I love you a lot, you know, so thank you.